All right, welcome to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. Guys, we're excited. Y'all know my favorite topic is business, okay, and wealth and legacy. That's what the Practical Wealth Show is all about. So I have a awesome guest for you, Miss Nike Anani.
Yeah.
And okay, and all of a sudden I went blank. And so what we're going to talk about is really what we call lifetime to legacy. And one of the things she specializes doing is helping next generation. So let's say you're in business and you've got kids coming up, or you're the kids taking over the business. How do you, it's a couple of different things. How do you step out of the shadow? How do you grow? But let me tell you a little bit about her, and I'm going to have her tell about herself. So she's an author and a consultant to NextGen businesses, and to basically how to lead your business into the next generation. So she helps rise above the operations into a non-executive board role with credibility, right? So that you're able to lead and formulate a plan, future-proof the business, and become a more effective change agent. And she fuses her inside experience as a next-gen executive in her family business. She's also a chartered accountant and a family business advisor to bring practical, proven solutions. So you schooled in London, right? You went to the University of College in London, and she's got a degree in economics, and she's a real smart girl, woman, sorry. And because the chartered accountant is like a CPA here, right?
Yeah, it is.
And here's the thing, guys, the financial literacy is accounting, is the ability to read numbers. So that is the language of money, and she speaks money. So we love her. Okay, welcome to the Practical Wealth Show.
Thank you so much, Curtis. I'm like bursting out laughing here.
Right. I know we've had some spicy conversations in the green room before we start recording. So I should do a B-roll on some of the stuff that we talked about.
This is gonna be good fun. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So tell them what I didn't tell them. Let's fill in the blank, because you moved from Nigeria to now where you're residing, and how's that going?
No, it's been great. I recently just moved to Texas a couple months ago. So it's all very new. It's a season of new beginnings for me and my family. But prior to that, who am I? I'm a second generation business owner. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm a consultant to business leaders that want to build businesses that will outlive them. So legacy businesses. And how did I get into this? I was born into an entrepreneurial family. My dad was the first generation. So he started our family business the year I was born. So I've always seen entrepreneurship. But as you said, I moved to the UK at the age of 9. So dad was still back in Lagos in Nigeria, building out the business. And after university, I worked in Deloitte, where I became your equivalent of a CPA. And guys, learning the language of finance and money is great, but working in it's not for me. It was just incredibly boring. So I gained a lot of great skills, experiences being in Deloitte, one of which I'm so grateful for. Like you said, is the ability to understand the story that's behind numbers.
Yeah.
And also understand how strategy impacts on numbers. So both ways. And so, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't fulfilling. And I left and moved back to Nigeria and started working with my dad in our family business, and became a board member, oversaw human resources, finance, and administration. I also then set up a family office to manage the family's investments, to handle structuring, legal, estate planning, and things of the like. But along the journey, I observed a lot of things. I loved the entrepreneurial culture in Nigeria and all the opportunity, but I saw a lot of lack. I saw an abundance of poverty. Unfortunately, Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world right now.
Really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, 86 million people live on less than $1 a day. And to me, as an economist, it's very troubling. I was always very passionate about economic development and what have you. And moving back, I then saw a link that, hold up, there's a lot of entrepreneurial activity, lots of business owners, family businesses, but these businesses will struggle to move past the first generation. Typically, once the founder would pass away, give it 6 months. the
Yes.
whole thing would fall apart.
Yes.
Infighting in the family, all sorts of poor estate planning, poor succession planning, and everything would literally fall apart. And the family would go from wealth to back to poverty. And it became very clear to me that the antidote to generational poverty was generational wealth through generational businesses. Because that's really, if you trace any wealthy family, at some point in their lineage, there would have been a business.
There's a business owner. Exactly.
There's a business somewhere.
Yeah,
somewhere. But we hadn't been intentional as a people in focusing on succession planning, in focusing on estate planning, succession planning, family governance, and things like that to build generational wealth. And that was the beginning of my journey to commit to trying to see widespread change in the community to promote generational wealth. And that's when I started working as a consultant, serving families to bridge generational gaps so that families could leave lasting legacies.
You ever heard that expression, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations? Like, is it a version of that in most like West, in most countries, like rice paddies,
yeah,
you know? And you're saying in 3 generations, like this is one, okay? And because of the estate planning, because a lot of people, it's like if you're a sole proprietorship, guys, in this unit with U.S. law, when you die, the business is over. You can't even get into the accounts. The business is done if you're operating on a Schedule C, where you're a sole proprietor off your social security number. So part of it, you have to create an entity now, which is a clone of you. That's one step of that. Then there's trust and there's insurance, because that's the stuff I do. But it's like working with somebody like Nike to really plan out that vision, I think is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
And so let's talk about why do you love it so much? Tell us about, I kind of heard that, but tell us, I guess, what you're doing and what gives you so much joy in doing it. And who do you actually work with in that regard?
Like I said, I'm really passionate about really reversing poverty, and it's about dignity. Folks should not have to worry about the clothes on their back, the roof over their head, the food that they will eat, because we all deserve dignity. And I really believe that, like I said, the antidote to poverty is wealth building through entrepreneurship. That's at the heart of it, my why. And so alongside, consulting families, I'm also, I think as a community, as Black people, we've neglected the importance of social capital, of coming together, learning from each other, developing partnerships, of ecosystem economics. And so with a friend of mine, we've co-founded African Family Firms, which is a nonprofit community of business owners. And it's a platform through which we educate, we provide training, we do research, we allow for that community for business owners to be able to build generational wealth and generational legacies. In my consulting work, who do I work with? I work with the successors. So you're a business owner and you have children and you want to pull away and you want to hand over to someone. Who's the someone? Usually what happens is founders only start to think about pulling away when they want to pull away.
Right.
So when they want to retire, it's like, yeah, I'm tired. I want to go and do a nonprofit, or I want to get involved in civic work or, church work, or just chill, on some ship somewhere on some cruise. Where are the kids again? And you've led a generation. You've led this business in a generation where your kids were not really involved. And so there's no one really groomed to take over.
Right. They've majored in pizza and beer for.
Yeah. Oh, they're off 9 to 5 in like our conversation.
Right.
The conversation in the community hasn't really been championing entrepreneurship, as like I've said.
The message is go to school, especially in Black community, go to school, get your education, get a good job. Even in a lot of, African, I have one of my clients is from Ghana. His family's from Ghana, right? So he says he's in business now, but he had to overcome the shame of his mother because he didn't want to be an engineer. So you can only be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, maybe. A lawyer, And something that was it. And then so he started out as engineer. He's like, I don't like this. He says, I want to do this social media thing, right? And what? That's not what we do here. Here are your choices, right? And it's a lot of pressure for excellence, but you still don't own the thing, and you can't pass on your job to somebody. And that's yeah. So I think that that's how much work is it to instill that entrepreneurial thinking in people, because that's kind of what I try to do, and that's work.
It is work. It is work. It's to understand that the benefits of entrepreneurship, time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom. Not only that, entrepreneurs have a mindset to create value, right? To be an entrepreneur, you've identified a group of people that have problems, and you can solve their problems and create value in a sustainable way.
Right.
And then the byproduct of that is money in the bank.
Yes, money follows value. That's
money
right.
follows value.
Yeah.
And that same thinking, we need that in different spheres of society. We need it in the social scene. Like there's a lot of philanthropy that's unsustainable. People just give off the whim, like very altruistic motivated, but there's not much thinking to how is this going to be sustainable? For instance, in Lagos during the pandemic, a group of folks raised money to create a specialist hospital to serve, I think it was 84 beds for people that would have COVID-19. And they raised the money internationally, and it ran for 6 months. The idea was they would hand it over to the government, who would then take over the management of it. It didn't run for 1 day more after it was handed over to government. So this is the problem with, I say that families are in unique positions to drive social change. They are a unique institution. Governments think in 4-year cycles at the max. Most of them actually think in 2-year cycles, because 1 year for elections and another year for what we're going to do next. Businesses, like corporates, they typically thinking
quarterly.
Days.
Yeah,
exactly.
At best quarterly. What's my, especially if you're public,
Precisely.
And or if you're small, you still think like a middle class person, because you're still trying to make sure you can meet payroll every week, or just how can I make enough to get through, cover the rent, and see if I have any money left over. And so it's hard. And so until you fix certain things, it's really hard to get beyond that.
Indeed. But families, entrepreneurial families particularly, should think for generations and think in a value-adding, sustainable manner. So that mindset, we need to preserve it. Even if your kids, for instance, that's not their jam is not to come and work in the family business. Their jam is to, I don't know, work in 9 to 5 or tech or philanthropy. That mindset still applies in different elements of society, and also applies as they have a role to play. If they're not managing a business, they're owners of a business, and that comes with.
I'm hearing voices, Dad. You don't understand. I'm artsy, and this is my 20-year-old. I just had this conversation, right? Like, listen. Everything, there's 3 parts of any business, what I call before, during, and after, right? And you want to be in the before unit, the marketing. I don't care if it's a museum. You need to be on the part that brings the money in. That gives you, even if you have a job security, and that's where the money is. Because I don't care, profit, nonprofit, it's a business, okay? And I think you a lot of times we don't get. Here's another. Do you find this? Now I guess we're getting hyped now. Do you find that within the communities that you're talking to, they have some basic level problem with money? Money's evil, capitalism is bad, that kind of, and see, because does that if you think money's bad or capitalism is evil, it's going to be, in my mind, hard for you to win, because you can't attract what you disdain.
You are so smart. You're on the money, particularly successors. So the kids, society, we talk about racism, sexism, ageism. One of the isms we don't talk about is wealthism.
Right.
Society shames wealth. It scorns wealth, particularly the self-made guys.
Because the people that teach them have been our Marxisms, right? They're Marxists, right?
Are we allowed to say that?
We just said it.
We
It's
just
my
said it.
show. I say what the hell I want.
And particularly, it's fine for the one that went from rags to riches, that, you know, built the wealth with his
Right.
hands, turned water into
Right.
wine. But the one that just inherited it, how dare her bitch, rich bitch. And so we all know these unspoken rules. And in a place as a successor, it's like, this, I don't really want this because it's limiting me in terms of how liked I will be by people in society.
Yes.
So they often dissociate themselves from this identity as an inheritor.
Yes.
I've met folks that are worth, I'm not joking, like hundreds of millions, and wear the most basic clothes because they don't want to stand out, like just wear plain t-shirts and very conspicuous because they don't want people to have the sense that they are privileged,
right.
They are entitled.
Right.
So there's a lot of mindset, emotional issues when it comes to money.
Are these people, let me go here, Black people that do that?
Interestingly, no.
Right. No. Okay. Let's keep going.
No, actually, no.
Because we like to look, we don't want to flaunt.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I have met a Black female that's the same. So with females,
singular, that was complex. A. You said A.
Yeah, and also to qualify with a female, there's an additional issue, which is, as a woman, you want to marry up, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to hide anything that's going to make you less attractive as a potential suitor.
Right. Or you need to see who they, because I have 3 daughters, right? So you need to see why they like you.
Same. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah. Do
they like me for the dad's cash?
Right.
Or do they like me for me?
Because there's a lot of knuckleheads like that, you know. Yeah. That you have to, so we're getting to some other stuff, but you know,
the interesting stuff.
You have to, you have to, here's a story. So when I was a teenager, I was a basketball player, and my parents did all right. So I used to drive their Cadillac at 16, 17, but we also had this T-Bird. And so I would go in the T-Bird with a dent in it on a first date. I didn't take the Cadillac because I wasn't trying to impress you. I wanted to see, if you like me. I mean, the car's not a big deal anyway. I didn't think it was a big deal, but you know what I mean? I was conscious of that 16 or 17. You want to know, that was like my test. Or if you ever watched, what's that the other movie? It's a movie called the Bronx Tale, where you give them the Sunny test, right? And the Sunny test is, if you haven't seen the Bronx Tale, you should watch it. He says, listen, you lock the door. Cars don't work that way now. You can't do it. What you do is you unlock, let the woman in first, and she needs to reach over and unlock your door for you as you walk around. And Sonny says, this is Italian mobster. He's like, listen, if she don't open the door for you, she's a selfish broad and you never call her again. This is him talking like he's from New York. And he said that was the test. And so it was kind of like that. You want to see who you're working with. So that's another, it's so many layers of that classism, all that kind of stuff that's infused. And my wife, one of my daughters go to school, it's a lot of children of famous people, old money people, and they kind of stick together, but they are kind of low key. Because here's the thing, if you grow with money, it's not a big deal. It's like fish in water. It's like, this is, they don't even know that there's water exists. This is just how we live. So it's not a big deal. Whereas if you come into money, this is what you see when you see athletes and stuff, right? They all of a sudden they feel they want to get all this stuff they've been deprived all their life. I got a car, I got this, I got all this, and that's where what does that say? A fool and their money will soon parted. Right. And so I think if you give the keys, if you haven't trained on that and you give them the keys to the Cadillac, meaning the business, that's a problem waiting to happen. Either they are dislike money, or they, I have what? And now they go shopping, and that kind of stuff. So have you seen that? I'm sure you've seen all of that stuff.
I often say, like, as if you're the founder and you're a parent and you're raising kids, you want to make sure your kids move away from a mindset towards money of let's show it, let's blow it, to let's steward it or let's multiply it.
Yeah.
And that's really critical in ensuring that we maintain this wealth for generations to come. And as a community, we have to normalize not consumerism, but production and entrepreneurship. We've normalized, like you said, you come into new money and you blow it.
Right. How do we do that? How do we, how do you start to help, when does it start? I have a thought, but I want you to say it. And then, what is the process that you begin to take people through that, to the kids through that, to get them ready?
It starts at when they're born.
Yes.
Teach them the value of money.
That's right.
It's just responsible ownership and understanding that you are a steward.
Yeah.
Right. This money isn't for you to blow. This money is entrusted to you to preserve and grow for future generations. There's a higher purpose behind it. It's not just money.
And you start that early. One of the things you said that was interesting, and because I have been, I'm trying to this probably next year starting to get into like setting up, teaching people how to do family retreats. And so when you study the Rockefellers and they have, you said two interesting things, family office, right? But more importantly, they have a system of family governance. They have a constitution, in other words, right? Of what they do. We meet twice a year, once a year, we get together. Here's our philosophy. Here's the family is the human capital. You've got the social capital. Here's our things that are important to us socially. And here's the business. Here's how this started. So the history of the people that bust their ass to get this. This is not like party time for you.
Yep.
So I'd be curious to hear that, because I think that how that works.
Starts with conversation.
Okay.
As soon as, like I said, as soon as they're born, trying to instill the value of money. But as soon as they're able to understand, you first start introducing the concept of entrepreneurship. I've got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So obviously we're not having deep conversation on philosophy of the family business, right? But trying to understand the value of money. Mommy and daddy have to work. Do we have a business because of this? Like, we have costs, etc. Our motive is to have more money than we spend. But as they evolve with time, firstly, taking a step back from the governance, introducing them to the concept of entrepreneurship, exposing them to it so that they can fall in love with it for themselves. They can't fall in love with what they don't know. And often the common mistake that folks make is they never really expose their kids to what the business is about, the higher purpose, the stories, and they just see this as this very functional thing that brings mom and dad money. And so they're not really emotionally invested. They might be they might have legal ownership, but they don't have emotional ownership. And as family, we want to build that emotional ownership. And then we want to start having conversations on, like you said, what is the vision, the family vision? What is the family mission? What's the deeper purpose of the business beyond just dollars and cents? Of course, every business is in business to make a profit, but what are our values? What are the causes that, for instance, there's a family that I helped them with facilitating this very conversation. And theirs was, we are a family driven towards legacy, and we want to back transformational change in undeserved communities. So this was in terms of like their family investment thesis. So obviously they're looking more in terms of like ESG oriented. Their financial return is social change is just as important for them as financial return. So they wouldn't necessarily invest in, an opportunity where there were no social benefits, but they got the highest financial return. You see what I mean? So
yeah.
Sitting together and exploring what's our shared purpose as a family, what's our shared vision, our shared values, and what is everyone's role in this. So not everyone is going to be soccer mind, the midfielder or the striker. Right? Some will be the defenders, some will be the referees, some will be the substitutes. But we all have a role to play. And just because someone has possession of the ball doesn't mean it's not a team effort,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that person is just representing the team. So Donna might be the CEO, but we are collective leaders.
Right.
You are representing us, right? And then, so once you have that foundation of what's our shared vision, mission, conviction, which speaks to purpose, then we want to start, and the values, the family values, then we want to start putting to paper and documenting the family governance. So a lot of the time in the Black community, we've been very oral oriented. And I was doing, interestingly today, I was reading on pre-colonial African history. And he was saying that our religions were very much oral past, oral tradition, oral cultures, and things like that. The introduction of Islam and Christianity came with a religious textbook. So I think it's cultural in us that we love oral storytelling. You know, your grandma's grandma did this, and you pass it. But folks, to build legacy wealth, it cannot just be oral. It
Gotta be
cannot.
written. Yeah, it's gotta be written.
We have to write it down. We need a constitution.
And you need to follow it. Like, so the meetings, like somehow in the United States, we have a constitution, but nobody seems to have read it. But anyway, there's another story. And I do told you I go there from time to time. But because that's the rule book. That's the rules of the road. That makes sure that we're on course and that we are fulfilling the mission of what we're trying to get done. So I love that. Keep going on that, because that's
a really great point you bring up. So a nation is governed by a constitution, and without a constitution in the United States, there would be anarchy.
Yes,
because there's no law and order. There's no framework for what's the role of the Senate, the House of Representatives, the all the different bodies, and there's no process for civic engagement to improve upon the very political system. And it's the same in a family. As a family is growing generations to generations, we're growing exponentially.
Yes,
right. Each child is having their own family, and you're bringing in, in-laws, outlaws. They may be getting divorced or single parent. Like, it gets more complicated if there's no constitution to govern who are we, how do we operate. These are the rules.
Yes.
There will be anarchy. Obviously, there's certain eventualities we don't always foresee, right? Just a constitution doesn't spell out all the specific, all the potential permutations and combinations of events that may take place. But what it does is that it provides a framework through which we know how we're going to meet, how we're going to escalate decision making, what's going to go to the president, how does the president report to, for instance, in the company as well, like how does the president of the company report to the board, what matters are taken from the board to the shareholders, and it's the same in the family. We need to get really systematic about what's the family's mandate, for instance, through a family council. So, for instance, myself and my brothers and my father, we have a family council, and we have a mandate, and that is over the family investments, strategic matters over the family business as well. And we have a reporting structure that goes from the council down to the board of directors for the family office, the board of directors for the family business, and also down to management. So we have a cadence, and we know what matters are escalated appropriately, if that makes sense.
Yes. How do I want to say this? Let's say, because so if they're not public, you're not even talking about a public company, but let's say I've got 15 properties and my kids are like 8 and 14, but I like what you're talking about. And how do I be, can this start building a constitution, while I'm, building my empire? I want to start to, because that's what it means to you can't wait to become a big business. You got to act like a big business when you're small, because you'll never get big otherwise.
In Africa, we say, if you want to know the end, show me the beginning.
Oh, I like that.
So you start with the end in mind. You're not waiting till you blow until you start putting the structures and processes, because often by that point it's too late, right? Structure always, foundations precede the building, and it's the same in this regard. It's really important that as families, we're aware that there's two elements we need to plan in tandem. There's the technical, which is like, you need to ensure you've got your estate planning. You need someone like Curtis on your side, right? Your insurances, your wealth planning, etc., your CPA, your attorneys. You need those folks to make sure that, okay, we're planning for generational transition. How do we ensure that this is watertight for the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old, or what have you? But there's also, it's relational. What's the deeper purpose to this? What's the values and the ethos? Are we family first, or are we business first? How do we deal with this confluence of family and business? What if, for instance, we have conflict within the family with regards to the business? How do we mediate that? How do we get over that, right? These are the relational elements. So it's important that as families, as early as possible, we start to collectively have conversation. What's the collective purpose of this? And each person should have a say. Each person should have a voice. We might not necessarily have 100% consensus at all times, but unity is not uniformity. And I think that's the beauty of family, is that we have a natural diversity with different viewpoints, but we have an opportunity to collectively paint this picture in the way we want. So we need a platform to talk about the business, to talk about money, to talk about where it's heading. And we need to be a cadence. So it's not something that we're just lackadaisical about. It will happen when it will happen. No, it never happens when it will happen. All the successful families have rigor, and they have a professionalization to the way they manage the family as well. So we need to have meetings. And in these meetings, it's not just Curtis being physically present, but his mind is somewhere else. He needs to be emotionally and mentally present, as are all his family members. So you'll find that a lot of the successful families, they have retreats. They go away from the office, from life, to find each other. Like, I say that like metaphorically, right? To find themselves and be able to connect and ruminate on these very spiritual conversations. Almost.
It's work. I was reading 2 books on that, and I've been like, it's funny. I've been thinking about, how do I implement this? Hold on one second. So when you were talking, I was thinking about this book called The Family Wealth, where it talks about thinking longer, and then, having a system of family governance. But what was so important is that there's a book by Keith Cameron Smith called The Difference Between the Millionaires and the Middle Class. And so if you're in poverty, you think in scarcity. So you maybe at best think day to day, maybe week to week. Okay. That would be long range thinking. Middle income people think month to month, check to check, right? And then some business people think that way too, but businesses will, I tell people, look, I try to get people to think quarterly, right? But you need to have a longer vision. So if you'll hear Buffett, he still talks about, well, in 20 years, Coca-Cola will be doing this. And so you can hear it. They think it was some story where the guy traded, he was like 70 and he planted some garden. He was growing a garden. He says, and this tree or this plant, if there was a tree, takes like 75 years to grow. And he says, he says, sir, this takes like 75 years to grow. This guy was already like 70 something. He says, yeah, well, we better plant it now then. So he's already thinking long range. See, so, and if you're in poverty, if you're in scarcity, it's hard to think that way. And so there's a lot of mental baggage you got to go through. And we have to, because the number one problem I see, even with working with clients, is short-term thinking. They suffer from short-term thinking, and you have to work at expanding your time frame of, because as you'd be amazed, I interviewed this guy, says, look, you're trying to get all done in a year, 2 years, 5 years. I tell people Rome wasn't built in a day. And so, you got to expand your vision, and you will be surprised how much you can get done if you just relax and just, do the thing. And it's about your kids. And my parents would tell us, listen, we're building this for you, to take over. I've heard that from the time I was like 6, 7 years old, that this is for you. And I'm so enjoying this conversation. So it's like, I don't want to get you back, Coralie, because I really want to delve into this. Let me think about some other stuff. All right. So let's talk about what's a change creator. So let me get into your thing, I want a little bit, because, I just sidetracked you and all kinds of other stuff, but
no, it's great. So taking a step back, legacy is beyond sustainability. It also has a regenerative element to it. And so we have to be able to not only adapt with the times, create the times. And change creators are leaders that are able to do that, to understand the times and seasons that we're in and to create new business opportunities accordingly. The most successful family enterprises that have succeeded over 100 years, studies have shown, are regenerative families that are able to see new opportunities, have new products, new services, new investments, expand into new markets, start new joint ventures. And that's the way to really future-proof. So change creators not only have an eye for opportunity, but they actually have the rigor to also go after those and implement them to bring about impact, which is, in our language, profit.
Yes, right. Yeah, that's you see, you have to be, I call it green and growing, and always looking for, you can't just be stuck in this is how we do it. This is how we did it 30 years ago. Indeed. Because 20 years ago, we didn't have, Facebook wasn't that. Facebook was only 10 years, 12 years old.
Yeah. Started the year I was a fresher. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that old. I mean, I remember I hate to even say this, but I think I was 28 when email came out. I was 28, and had been in business 6 or 7 years before it was email. It was only like 40, 50, 400, where you just plug the phone line in and that kind of stuff. It was like, shh, that whole thing. So y'all young people don't even know what I'm talking about, but I still had a landline phone that was connected to something, right? With a cord. It's like, what is that?
That's so important.
You have to, and so sometimes the older generation needs to let them, because they've grown up in technology. It's like water. So it's like, you got to let them kind of do their thing and pull you into the 21st century.
Because the rate of change we are seeing is exponential. We've never been through this rate of change ever before in history. And so in order to be able to build a legacy business, we will need to be able to be adaptable and transform. And like you said, the younger generation are digital natives, and we're going to see reverse mentoring. So your kids will start teaching you about tech and telling you where the opportunities lie, or even more so, empower the kids to start off new ventures that add to the family empire. Tech ventures. That's what a lot of the successful families do, is that they'll have a family bank, and Curtis' daughter wants to start a health tech business. Okay, we'll loan you some money, or this is the family's investment in it. You go off as an intrapreneur to start a new venture that adds, new flavor to the family empire. And who knows, this might be, for the next generation, the main source of wealth, this main cash cow for the next generation. So it's important that we are adaptable and we empower our kids to get involved and to have a voice. It's not just, like I said, families have a natural diversity, but diversity is not enough. Inclusion is not enough. What we actually need is to empower each other to be challengers, to challenge each other's ways of thinking, right? To stretch the boundaries. So that's where creativity and true innovation comes out from. And that's what we need to future-proof our businesses.
What are the skills, in your mind, required to be an effective next-gen leader?
So I often talk about the 4 C's. The first is conviction. What's
Mhm.
the purpose? What's your purpose? So you've got this family business, and like I said, there are many players, many roles you could play, but what's your specific purpose in the whole system?
Mhm.
The next is curiosity. Alvin Toffler says the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Mm.
So as curious people, we have to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. We must have an eye for opportunity. We must also make space for different ideas and challenge,
Mhm.
like I mentioned. The next is courage. It's not enough just to see an opportunity, right? We actually have to act. We actually have to go after these opportunities. And it's only in the doing that we'll be able to move towards impact. And the last is collaboration.
Mm.
The hour we're in, that's very disruptive. We need diversity of thought. That can only come about when we have collaboration. The days of individual rulership, that's over.
Right.
We need collective leadership, particularly as, say, for instance, your daughters, they need to be collective leaders. They need to collaborate together when they're thinking about the future of a family business, because they together will be the partners.
Yeah. I mean, what's the old saying? Two heads are better than one.
Mm-hmm.
And see, so the education teaches collaboration is bad. They call that cheating, right? And you're trained to be a rugged individual, but Robert Kiyosaki says business is a team sport. And so even when you talk about the family office, that's you got, like, in my mind, I'm trying to create that on, like, teach that thought process, even like for middle and upper middle income people, that you need to kind of have a team of, depending on the asset class you like, business, real. So right now we're talking about business, but what I teach is just 4 asset classes: business, real estate, paper, and commodities, right? So, so your business, well, now your business is so successful, you need a team of people just to manage your money. That's a family office, right? And which means but what drives that is your ability to be effective in solving problems and building an effective business, which is focused and getting good at your thing before you're all over the place. I want multiple streams of income. And I don't know. This is such a good topic. All right, we definitely got to get you. You're speaking my language. It's like, what is your greatest wish for next gens at large? If they're listening to this, and you are a next gen, or you're the parents trying to raise next gen, what would you say your greatest wish is?
For them to understand just how much power they have. A lot of the time they feel imprisoned by their circumstance and not powered by their privilege. And we've rubbished the word privilege to mean something dirty. It's not. It really is not. We all have measures of privilege to varying degrees, right? And if they understand that they are powered by possibility, they're able to bring about change that they want to see, whether it's social, business, economic, but they have to come together. They have to collaborate with their parents, collaborate with their siblings, collaborate with one another. I believe that we are in an age of, we need deep collaboration to bring about the change that the world needs to see. So it's really for them to understand that they have a lot of power within them. They've often been overlooked, but it's their time to come out.
I love that. Okay, so so here's my catch-all to make sure I don't forget anything. Anything I should have asked you that you want to talk about, that you want to?
I think we've kind of talked about absolutely everything, but maybe we had a helicopter view of everything. I'd be happy to come back and go deeper.
You're coming back. All right. And so tell them if they want to follow you and see what you got going on, I want to learn more about this, what's the best way for them to do that, or ways?
My website. Hit me up on my website, www.firstnamelastname.com. That's Nike, Nike Anani, ANANI.com. There you've got links to all my social, links to my podcast, The Connected Generation, and also you can leave me a message and I'll be in touch.
I love it. I love it. Guys, so we just had a lot of deep thought here. So, I want you to think about, even if you're thinking about being in business or you're in business, the time is now. So that could be playing cash flow with them, right? And, if you have a family retreat, I'm sure there's a way, if you talk to your accountant, that whole thing can be tax deductible, right? So that's part of the game, right? And so this is such a important conversation. And that I don't think is being had about that. Nobody talks about family governance or that kind of stuff. And I think that, so I'm thankful. Next time we'll dig into the nonprofit and just the stuff you got going on. I think it's such a, and y'all need to hear it. Boom, boom, boom. We might have her on once a quarter just so I can bang it in your head. So, DK, thank you so much for being on the Practical Wealth Show. Make sure y'all reach out to her and hey, listen, like, share, leave us a review, and then share this with other entrepreneurs that you know, and make sure you follow her podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.